So in the modern day world, there's a lot of different rules and shit. Now, even when we're not really talking about anything important, this is just going to be a small, or it should be a small minor note. But anyway, with it entails that the fact that like emotions next to godhood and anarchy rules the world and the universe and all that bullshit. There are things that are like your senses that are next to godhood, and your emotions are supposed to equivalent in reality what things are supposed to be without the overpopulation of the world or with all the big careless problems that we do have, which include the fact that everything that's supposed to be worthwhile to us, that includes anarchy as a philosophy, is that everything should be kind of at our fingertips. Every emotion, whether it's thirst, hunger, this or that, all these emotions are used to generate everything and anything that we want at our fingertips. Whether they do or don't isn't really the question in the modern day world. Where, I can't hear a lot of yawning. Which, in all honesty, if you are still hungry, and you are hungry, and all of a sudden your appetite has been somehow satisfied, and you are somehow infinitely immortal and all of this other extra bullshit, you might still be hungry, but the question has already been answered, and you are not in actuality very hungry at all, and you just keep eating. Or using your appetite to complete the feeling that you are fucking hungry when you aren't even actually fucking hungry, because that is to satiate the fact that you need some kind of substance to fulfill some physical need or some apparatus need. So that would include the fact that, well, overall deterioration does include your environmental state or whatever the fuck. So you might need to heal just from aging or whatever the hell it might be, even in small amounts. So even if you kept track of it, you'd be eating 3 meals a day or so on and so forth. Why so much yawning? I don't know. But anyways, in the overall moral compass of things, everything is actually ass backwards. So if you can have everything on your fingertips and right when you wish for it, and every emotion or fake emotion or need or necessity or sense answered, which is technically what it's supposed to be, all of these, that, and the other things would be these discoveries that everything would work damn near like the fucking internet, and every search for everything that you would have had would have been as simple as almost the fucking internet. Now, in the opposite world, which is the world that we live in and come from, somehow power or misfortune or the fortune of power has become to distinctify how much we do not rely on this power, do not use this power, because, well, let's say everything in magic or the realm of power has become illegal, not just because of slavery, delusion, organization, overall mental sanity, because, I mean, of course you would go insane with everything at your fingertips, or otherwise being so deluded or delusional as everything being a, what's that called, a hallucination? No, mirage. So what we call life and fantasy and all these other things in a nutshell is the fact that all the greater laws of reality and what encompasses us to have to go to work every day and stay organized and do all these other things, other than the most basic thing, than to keep the world organized and, fruitful, dignified, work related in a way where it can actually be truly stable, is really what you're going for. And that can also happen a lot by itself, because it's like, who the hell is going to farm all these fucking fields and shit? You know what? Random ass people like me who just like, hey, it looks like we need to farm the fucking field. Let's just farm the fucking field. Probably that. So anarchy can rule, but let's just say that we're against it because it's not as profitable. It curves down on slavery. Slavery is a very valuable fucking thing, and it's also more important than commerce itself, or what we have to do to enable a living. Slavery is far more important. Getting people to do what the fuck you want them to do. It's generally a godhood-like thing, and it could have been also the same type of behavior that brought upon the downfall of them and otherwise. Now, why am I saying this? Because, well, it's not only the counterpoint, but it's also the same counterpoint that it would be for existence and for against existence. Now, when you add up all these rules and these laws, and not even just godhoods, but because most of God, if you were to review most things under gods or whatever, most of those rules that they have, or whatever that they are gods of, or what they help take care of around this fucking shithole, it really does enable the fact that more godhood is probably more plentiful, bountiful, or something that they want as a necessity, or there is some indignant laws of services that render a reality to be truly benevolent and bountiful as what reality can be with gods. So back to the new overall opposite inside out invertoplex fucking point would be that what you know to exist now as the rules are two different things. One, if you didn't have any rules, it would probably be a state of godhood and complete anarchy. People that fall into the realm of being safe with God are probably the people that are in the necessity or in working for God and keeping those areas, safe and uniformly, like, well kept and serviceable. Now, in the other realm, where everything is illegal, including God, or including multiple God beliefs or whatever, all of those things that are illegal are now under the chaos that is the order of reality, where every single thing is against everything that moves or even thinks outside of what is free will for humankind, and so on and so forth in kindred and similarity. Now, with what is going on there is that all of them have learned how to survive without using any of their godhood and without using any emotions, and their devotion has been, or their self-discipline has been uniquely shared incorrectly with every other human being, in the fact that there would not be really a real fortunate understanding of reality, due to the fact that not everything is at their fingertips or as wisely given as what is so, what's the word that I'm looking for? I forget. But so easily rationally given to all of us in a bountiful manner. Now, because of that, that is what we have going on as rules. So even instant death, instant war, instant fighting for anything that exists outside of these credos for free will and humanity, lessening the extent for all of us to create a demand on reality for population over prudence, or what they or us fortunately know as existence in humanity without the level of aptitude that it would take for all of us to achieve certain things within humanity. Of course, still animals, of course, still a bunch of different types of things. Of course, it's different educational material. So, anyways, if you go back and you review different mythologies, because I don't even want to call them mythologies, I just call them godhood, but there's a better word for it, and I'll bring it up later and I'll re-put it in this manner. But by the end of it, what's really important to understand is that what you see and what you know about mythologies, Greek or otherwise, or all these other different types of things that you know about the different facets of godistic behavior or life or whatever the fuck, all of those boil down to all of these being either life lessons or things that happen before the influx or the incurrence of the species of humankind ravaging the world. So it was before we were all ravaged by the world, our intellectual divineness, or what had linked us all together in this great journey for what we know is life. Which we still prefer free will, we still prefer much more life, independent thoughts, and other types of things that overall equal what mass and reality's true shape and judgment is. But by the end of it, yes, that is reality. But in the opposite bizarro world where we come from, it's odd to sometimes imagine or to know this to be almost true, that the opposite of God, or the rule under God, or survival, is the exact opposite of anarchy, which is in actuality the communal business sense that we're offered as such a wipe and a washout to what we would all be offered from divine arts and magic for a living. Now, of course, the population would completely be like altered and a lot less, but in actuality, it's like, you know, humble wisdom in space, I would say. But by the end of it, let's reduce the joke and go into what does that substantially mean. That means that in place of what they would call order, instead of for chaos, we would get what we will refer to as an organized anarchy, where the anarchy is replaced with the fact that all the things at your fingertips are your desires, all fulfilled like gods and goddesses have promised before that to us as human beings. Now, when you don't understand the gravity of the point or what they really mean, they mean such an old, archaic form of life that which magic is allowed to actually exist, where there aren't as many rules. Before the premonition became how many rules that you would actually need to exist, with free will, with the fact that no one cares, with the fact that godhood and livelihood at that time could have been embodied by any power structure that they want. People didn't want life so badly. Life was like discovering the internet. Before the internet was born, they had free will and such. You would have to think of it almost that way, or to the anarchy type of will, where you realize that the opposite can seem like so much slavery to the people that know that in their free will All of their philosophies are still in existence, except for that they cannot embody what they used to previously do, because now so much power and so much wellness has become illegal. I could not think of something so much more torturous or disgusting than that thought. But in every day that you enact, why do we do this? Why do we hate the system so much? Why are we so bitter towards all these things in life that we have to do? And all of that just to e-commerce or commerce, some business that we have to do to live, breathe, and survive for a population that we're not even really fucking certain of. Do you know how many censuses that we run just to look for alien activity? And I'm not talking about in my crazy ass head, I'm talking about just random censuses that we have to run to make sure our population is wholeheartedly, fully what we know it to be, when we all have our rights to implicate or our civil will and duty to imply what we are actually thinking, pronouncing, and becoming is reflecting what we are trying to do and achieve as a people. Now, of course, you have to run a lot of censuses anyway, so no big deal. But sometimes we run random censuses just because we fucking have to, and it's a good thing to fucking do in order to make certain of what we had just reviewed, and also this, that, and the other, and more. Because even if you were sitting there and like, they said we have made alien contact online or some shit, you'd still probably want to review the list of things to do if we had ever met alien life. And even me sounding more nerdy. If we had ever met alien life, on the list of what to do when we meet alien life, a head count is one of them, a census is one of them. So it's just a good thing to fucking do, just to ensure your population as you collide into another population's well-diversified interscopic thoughts or whatever the fuck. But by the end of it, that's about all. I think there was a 1.3 point there, but let's see the real true overall point that I really wanted to make overall was that within this government constriction, and I'm not talking about our government, I'm talking about overall civilization's overall construct and shit, there cannot be room for gods, magic, or so forth, which I'm not really against or any of that, but it's just to say that, like, why is life so illegal? Why do mere mortals find themselves challenging gods in old stories and in modern day stories and not even realizing it? Even as you get up to go and get a fucking cup of coffee from your own fucking house, why is it warm? You know, you need it warm this certain way, but it's not the same kind of a thermo heating that it is when it's some other kind of ceramic heating or some other kind of fucking electrical heating or metal heating. So of course there's always some different weird thing to life. Now, I really shouldn't make it that wide of a scheme of fucking things, but I just figured that I should say this fucking thought, get it the fuck out of the way, so that some people can fucking possibly understand that, like, you know, there is a lot of facets and reasons to why multiple gods aren't currently in existence, and why religion isn't that way, at least currently. Now, of course, it is and it isn't, but it's just all a simple thought. But it's just to widen the perspective on, in theory, why does multiple gods not exist? Or why are we truly not aware of how devastating our actual inherent overall physical constructed thoughts are to life? Now, even when they say something like aliens or theory or, you know, the acts of our own consciousness embody what our fantasies are, or the definition of fantasies being our physical construction for how our thoughts represent how our universe is dignitated, or what the fuck is the word I'm looking for? Oh, fuck. Anyways, is deliberated to us. It's like living in the capsule of our own real false or real reality for how we decide it merely. Now, that goes along with godness. That goes along with all the other things. And our creed and our motto to that would become that no matter what, the devil is always in these details. And it just seems no matter how we grow, develop life, or do any of these things, the embodiment of mass reality in our overall democracy is the equality of what we are encompassed in and trapped in. Some things will never change. Some things will always be rules. Some things we don't know how to talk to. Some things we just don't know how to make rock floats, or we don't know how to make rocks float. There's just some things that can be communicated with reality. Some things aren't communicated with reality. Some things will never have anything to do with human beings. Some things objectively in the right of thinking will never be right for what we need it to be in this reality, maybe in the next life, maybe in another dimension. We don't know, we don't care. It's really not that fucking important, not even for this discussion. But when it still comes back to the overall point of like, why do we have no great giant new civilizations that were based or depicted upon or depicted by people of an almost otherworldly, magnanimous, giant, enigmatic fucking existence or godhood? Maybe it's not likely. Maybe we're just done with those eras in life. Maybe it's just the factor that life has changed constructively into the point that where free will is not as important as what slavery was, or vice versa, slavery isn't as important as what free will was. Now, for us, the factor that slavery seems like such a scary word, it was actually a very eloquent, beautiful word. Like just showing up, building civilizations for people and other human beings, and welcoming them to planet Earth was something that wasn't considered slavery. Nowadays it is. These different philosophies that have occurred have changed how we disciple and work for other religions or work for other people in anonymity or ignoticity. Now, with all of those type of things all adding up to our prevalence or our preference, it's really not supposed to be an issue, but it is, and it's called free will. Now, not the lack of free will sounds bad, but it's not really as bad as like, oh, you wanted this and it's at your fingertips, and the other people who did not want to exist simply just did not care whether they were in existence or not, or whether the trip was so insignificantly, as a matter of fact, so random that it was as fun as a roller coaster or going, wee, I was a flame once upon a time. Wee, I don't remember what water was. Wee. Now, I'm not proposing anything to you. It was probably just a hell of a roller coaster ride. But when we get back to the truth of the matter, I just wanted to open up your perception into the people that do trip out, or people that do like, these type of things. I'm not really that into it. I'm more of the type that I love worshiping things. And I'm on the big S word type, but I also have to delete the word because it's taken advantage of too much. And it leads to other wrong things in this society and in these modern day beliefs. And the modification has become something so strong that even no bounds can hold that free will is already truly at its abundance, to the point where we're not sure if it's for the lack of a better prominence, dignity, or pronouncement in life or performance, that it leads us astray from what our common goal really was to perform better, stronger, or more significant. Now, whether it be one God, multiple gods, different people, of course, probably multiple gods, which in the end of it, like, who cares if you could just let one guy run it and then all of us go live our lives in happiness? Then who the fuck cares? But as of ease, it would be at fingertips for all of us to utilize. Now, I'm not talking about magic. I'm talking about you make a bowl of wine and fruit appear, a cup of wine and a bowl of fruit appear, it appears. Now, of course, in some way, you can't explain that without a bunch of people doing some stuff, but in other ways, yes, you can, and it was just a lot more normal, and it was a lot better. Now, even when everything is invisible and already done for you, if you could just press the word wellness, and you just think about the word wellness, your hunger goes away, your skin heals, your fruits and vegetables don't appear, there is no food, all of that stuff goes away. But eventually there has to be a canvas for any of this stuff, so it exists, so it can work for you, or it only works because something invisible happened and you don't know anything about it, so you're just automatically well, so that you can go back to war and hold security for all the philosophies that it takes to raise such a godly manner. So that's how those things work. Now, even when in the modern day world, all of us have fallen to free will and all these other things, and gods do exist in a different plane or a different dimension, let's say. I don't know what the plane is or what the dimension is, but I'd rather live on a plane too if it was a godly choice that I had to make. But anyways, by the end of it, a different dimension and so on and so forth. So eventually the quality or the significance of it all surfaces to their original point that they probably meant. So I find it interesting, being what my ultimate coalescing point of this whole speech was, is that in the backwards world that we actually live in now, complaining and bitching about blue crap and what the government does, or what we're supposed to do to hold up this civilization and all this shit, you start to realize in the backwards world, all of it would be at our fingertips and at ease, and it would be under the significance of how important it was to actually operate and not just be called to useless, mindless, brainless shithouse work for whatever the fuck company, and not in our own favor for some, mindless, brainless, faceless corporation that we are to operate as its body part for no fucking reason, whether it's no good, nothing, or not even for any real reason other than the fact that it might even be like a fucking stupid thing to work for a place that doesn't even have a fucking head or thinks at all. So you're just showing up as a body part for it, like a fucking stupid motherfucker doing mindless work, which could even be bad at times. But anyways, but I think in all honesty, what my point is that in that world, you can fight so hard for little to no fucking reason and still be stuck with the same philosophical understanding that in the opposite world, they would have so much power to be living in fear or in slavery of a god or some gods for no fucking reason, when all they really had was the divine arts and everything beautiful at a fucking fingertip. And that's really all. And that's the opposite of what this land is. But just to argue, just to have less standard, just to be in a feudal war with something that makes itself up as it goes along, arguing with people that don't even get the appendages of where they're fucking working at. Even when you're sitting there and you're like, I can't get anything done at the fucking vehicle licensing office or something, and they can't even operate without their supervisor or without anybody up to code of conduct for any of their fucking bullshit. And that's the type of world that we fucking live in. Could you imagine how in opposite land that it is so important to fucking run this shithole that way. So I don't know. It's just as bad as just as good as just as bad for the opposite world to exist. So I just thought that to be an interesting note if anyone else understood that. I'll find a better way to try to explain this again, but it's just kind of like, for what the internet is worth is what magic would have been worth, and it's almost like critically a bunch of wrong people's opinions who got far too greedy with life, even more greedy than the soulless independence of godness for how much might and wonder is worth, or how interesting it is for them to have almost virtually anything that they want, but it's never good enough until ultimate limitless power is limited by something as so much as intellectually free will. Now, could you ask yourself, intellectual free will was limitless power or power limited? Now, ask yourself a fucking question. If it's limiting what their ease of use was and their limitless power at their fingertips, who the fuck were they to incite such a free will? Now, like I said, free will and the opposite of it sounds so horrible, but like I said, we just having some fucking fun. You don't remember all that fucking much. You're just doing a bunch of fucking, like, fun stuff, going through all these little trips and stuff. Maybe you even saw a few wars and wreck houses at the fucking Coliseum. Maybe you even got drunk at the fucking bar and fought some guy. And it was fun. It wasn't remembered as the most reckless, shitty thing in the world, but everybody else's opinion got in the fucking way of what the mentality actually was, of what the mortality actually was. And even like falling into a fucking pit of stones was almost more fun than how senseless it was to use so much energy to regenerate, or that there wasn't enough memory to regenerate that quickly, or it was just a simple fact of why would you ask the question why when it was too difficult to explain why two warriors of that stature could not fight each other in infinite mortality. So that's just all. You knocked each other out of fucking memory, and no one wants to recall how they got their information back because out of love, they kept trying to repair the fucking person until they forgot what it was like to have a civilization. Things like that. But how is likely that possible? What is the real true link to civilization? And is this what civilization is worth? Then anarchy rules. Then think of other prospects, think of other solutions. It's just some insight that I would think that someone would take the time to think about before they classify this as like such an important thing for a reality to have so many crazy ass rules that we can't even comprehend ourselves, or where we came from, or what was the better performance for all of us to have to undergo, or to go through, or to evolve, or to achieve. So I just thought that was interesting to have a different outsight or a different insight to any of that. Just think about it. And on the other side of things, you still have to think about the fact that, like, even being locked in immortal combat forever is still one of them things where, like, even though all the anonymous random players take out everything simultaneously or automatically as what our beliefs are to hold up this weird ass dignified democracy as possible as we can, it's just another preference on the side of view that it's not even my preference. It's just like I like to play the devil's advocate with myself, or even with what we think our overall perception is. But when it comes down right to it, because even in democracy, I'd still have to fight for things that I didn't vote for, or things that aren't really my preference, just to uphold what I think would be civil liberty or liability for any cause that we have to hold up this kind of jurisdiction for all of us. But even beyond that, what I say this for, and why I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I hate wrestling. I hate wrestling other gods. I hate arguing with them. I hate fighting them. I hate dueling them. I hate all that whole thing. But then when you're sitting there and like no matter what you do, God's rules apply anyway, you still will probably end up wrestling another fucking dude. I feel like being like the newer, younger generation, just be like, ugh, gay. And then just leaving the room or just calling them gay until they finally give up on wrestling. But God, do they like them some fucking wrestling? And that's because most of the time they'll have to be in a physical altercation over something that we probably all thought or felt normal about psychologically, or we had to dominion this or define this as something strong and dignified to do for what people have to accomplish and what people have to represent in the world. Now, even when you add up families, dynasty, and history, which is a lot more prominent and more important to the self-worth and the worth of the fucking world, it still adds up to what is that really for? Besides the judgment of their power and the accolation of what those people represent and what we all represent in the dominion or the definition of life. And yes, people being stronger, faster, bigger, or back in time people being shorter or smaller, or these days people being bigger, or back then being exceptionally large for no understandable reason or other than what they have donated to life, world, or philosophically speaking, to life, which incurs them to be theoretically or paganistically bigger. So, I don't know, whatever. Things to think about, things that are overwhelming to think about, and why the fact that they are truly somewhere stuck in immortal combat, and whether they know it or not, or however existence has dignified that with a response other than my own, I guess. All of them are actually truly out there just living in immortal technique or in immortal combat for all universe. And that's the simple reason is why they do like to fucking wrestle, and why I just do not fucking understand, and I can't stop them from doing it, to the point where the agony and the devastation includes them being morally gay or encompassed by the fact that all flawlessness has given away to the devastating mistakes that their overall sexuality even is. So it's just kind of like, whatever. Maybe they weren't even gay. We don't know. We don't care. But you're so used to winners and losers that you wouldn't even fucking realize that, oh my God, that's totally anything but gay, but actually completely fucking gay otherwise. And goddamn, what is with you and needing a fucking loser and Jesus Christ, and oh my God, was it really made that way? And fucking, I'm out of here. Hypnox is done with y'all. We're just done here. And by the end of it, like, there is no other sustaining realization to what reality can be other than this fucking wrestling team and their weird ass nerdy way of doing fucking things. But either way, some people just need stability. Some people need to understand that these are their definitive facts on life. And for whoever has someone given us free will, I do not fucking know what to say, man. I wish you would take that one back, because these motherfuckers are morons. But on the other end of the spectrum, it still sounds stupid or moronic, because you have to take into consideration that even in immortal combat, even in instant death situations, all of these weird depravements, and let's say it's depraved because the things that you would have had at the fingertips of ease, of all full united life, you would have had, you would now have instant chaos, instant death, instant things, to the point where, like, all of the most subtle things, like creating a new emotion and making sure that it's a bountiful emotion that has food, wine, a castle or something like that, and then instantly being swept there and able to walk across your giant beautiful oasis of a mansion life or whatever the fuck, and all that kind of crap. All could have been instantaneous, but since it's against the law for them to be gods and all this, and they're still in immortal combat about all those things, it's like the replacement of them being a deity towards the fact of their own real appetite and their own real need and desire to do things, or wants and pleasures, or whatever, their true benevolence, replaced by some kind of a warfare over what free will be, what reality will be, and what our philosophies embody of all of these people's worth and what life does, which is easy and great to say that they were worth more than most normal people. But to know why they like to wrestle forever, I don't fucking know. It's fucking disgusting and annoying. Not the interaction between two men touching each other. That's not what's really that disgusting. We're talking about just like the sheer philosophical reason why, or the motive of why I have to win, or what it fucking means, or whatever the fuck. Or that no man likes anything, let alone getting up for more than 5 minutes and doing a chore, but we have to get used to this to do something, and blah blah blah, so on and so forth. And the more you know, the more it hurts, or the less you know, the better that it is to live in ignorance, as it was bliss. So whatever, and so on and so forth. But then when it comes back to the purpose of me saying this in the greater argument, can you realize that in their ultimate fucking true life, in their ultimate succumbing to things, they have had to resist this urge in the ass backwards world that we live in, to not be able to create anything that they want at their fingertips to their so desire, just to succumb to a fucking world that would believe in such shitty free will for lesser human beings and mortals to have, for what they can't really succumb to as a philosophical reasoning, or what they're in war permeatedly throughout the universe for forever. And that's why they like to wrestle, because they might as well get used to it, or that it's much worse than the fact that they do truly comprehend that what they're at fucking war with is the fact that what they're in war with is the instantaneous death versus being perfect at everything in order to survive a point that they never intended to really fucking make, that occurred after what they were already doing to fill a perfect civilization with their wants, needs, and devotions. All of that to resist it as common mind over matter, as Zen, or as some proof of what their will is supposed to cease to want to desire. I don't know. It's just crazy. And by the end of it, to resist almost everything that made them be gods.